One of my favorite things about my job is that I get to help people in transformational moments. I love working with the B'nai Mitzvah kids, students and families, as they sit on my couch for the first time. It's kind of low in there if you've sat on that couch before. Quiet and scared and apprehensive and maybe even being dragged there by their parents. To watch them as they grow into young adults ready to lead our community, our kahal. This incredible transformation is one of many that we get to see with students throughout their lifetimes, but I feel really lucky and grateful to be a part of this moment where at 12 or 13 more likely, we say to a kid who is truly uncomfortable in their own skin, why don't you go up and stand up in front of everybody and lead a service and read out of the Torah in a language that you're not quite 100% sure about, and tell them all your thoughts and feelings, and then do it well. And every time, kids rise to the challenge. It's incredible. It's an honor, an amazing process to watch. Even the kids that we have to drag over the finish line, and you know who you are. Maybe you were one of those children. One of the things about this, though, is that children are constantly going through transformations, right? So it's not unusual. While we're asking them to do something that most 13-year-olds are not capable of and do not do, the transformation that I see from beginning to end of the B'nai Mitzvah process is just a part of what it means to grow up. We see that with the children or the children in our lives, or perhaps you've seen it in this community. You've watched kids that you've taught go from destructive in the classroom to being incredible madrichim, perhaps. And I'm so lucky to be a part of that. We've watched children go from little bologna loaves to walking and talking and driving in the blink of an eye. One of the things we don't often get to see is the transformation of adults in our society. The growth process is slower with adults, or perhaps we're not as aware of it as we are with children. We're not noticing as frequently. So one of the incredible things that I get to do is help adults who choose to go through the process of conversion, lead them all the way through the Beit Din and the mikvah. I spoke about this on Rosh Hashanah last year, but it's a self-guided process, so I follow the lead of my students. I work with the candidate for at least a year. I want them to live a full year of Jewish life and take an intro class and read a bunch of books and reflect on them and meet with me once a month. And when they are ready, I assemble a Beit Din, a panel of 3 rabbis or cantors or other knowledgeable adults in the community, and then we ask some questions, and then the candidate will do 3 dips into the mikvah. We are really lucky in this area, by the way, that we have a progressive, egalitarian mikvah at Temple Israel. And if you haven't seen it before, maybe we'll take a field trip. Let me know. So, if someone has been living a Jewish life for a long time, the process looks different. For every student, we adjust to what they need. It's fascinating to be a part of, because it's a spiritual transformation as well as a community transformation and a physical transformation. Now, some of us will never experience conversion, and some of us don't want to and are happy to participate in the community, and we celebrate that, and we celebrate all of you. But this makes me wonder about other spiritual transformations and other things we can do to have that kind of growth that allows us to feel like we are following the path that is meant for us, that brings us closer to the community. We're actually doing that transformational work right now, today. Because we are being open and vulnerable and saying, I don't know, I probably got some things wrong, and I wish I had done something differently, and we're apologizing to one another and to God and maybe to ourselves, and we're saying maybe I need to make a choice, a change, a different choice. Or perhaps I need to look at my actions again, and we're saying all these prayers like we talked about last night, and we're not really sure of the outcome of those prayers. And if we say them, is it really doing anything? And yet, at the end of these 26 hours, we are physically different. Physically, of course, because we are probably hungry or tired, or we're not eating or fasting in other ways, but also because we're focusing on teshuvah and on community and on being together. So maybe we'll feel a little lighter and maybe a little tired. But this transformational spiritual experience doesn't have to just happen once a year. It doesn't need to happen within the four walls of this shul. But I will encourage you to come back to shul after this and come for Shabbat and tell your friends we're here. So, it's an important building, but it's not the only place that a spiritual transformation can happen. We have the opportunity for these kinds of transformations all the time. We're not always looking for them. We're not always stopping to pay attention. We're just in our lives thinking, what do we need to do next? Who do I need to pick up from this? What do I need at the grocery store? What did the thing at work happen? And then we go to sleep and we wake up and we might do the same thing over again. We don't often get a chance to step back and ask, how can I connect spiritually? This kind of transformation is achieved with growth, and that requires us to sit in discomfort, just like we talked about on Rosh Hashanah, to understand that we might never know the outcome of something, and we just have to do it. We have to put one foot in front of the other and do the work. Spiritual connection, which comes from connection to self and situation and community, may not initially sound like a typically Jewish idea. But we actually have this in the liturgy today. We heard it already. Kol dmama daka, the still small voice within us. That small voice exists all of the time. It's within you, within me. And the question we have to ask today is, are we going to listen? And if we're going to listen, are we going to trust it? Because it is the still small voice that allows us to make small change after small change, which leads to big transformation after big transformation. It allows me to trust that I am supposed to be here with you right now. And it might have led you to coming here this morning, although that could have been the voice of your parent waking you up. And yet, we spend so much time with distractions and not listening to that voice or ignoring it that we aren't giving ourselves the space that we need for transformation that we deserve. It takes space. As you know, Yisrael means wrestles with God. It's this story from Jacob who spends the night before meeting Esau, wrestling with a messenger from God. He's struggling to ask if he's worthy of forgiveness. He spent all these years after stealing his brother's birthright avoiding him. He's struggling to ask if he should go at all. And then, in the morning, he wakes up with a new name to reflect his experience. That is a big part of our spiritual experience and our spiritual life, this kind of transformation. It allows us to feel big feelings, that wrestling, and to be present with ourselves and patient with ourselves. You see, what happens at the end of the mikvah process at the Beit Din is the beginning of a new transformation. It is the end of work with me, perhaps one-on-one, maybe not, but it is the beginning of a different type of transformation. The beginning of a new choice, a daily choice of saying, I'm going to live this way, I choose to live this life, and that is a choice we all get to make. It's the beginning of saying, I'm never going to understand fully everything that Judaism has to offer. Anybody else feel that way? I'm never going to know all of the words or all of the answers. But it is a commitment to living a Jewish life, which many of you have done even without going to the mikvah. So I encourage you to look for these transformational experiences, to jump in, to do the thing, to go back to school if that's what you need to do, to look for a new job, to trust yourself enough to know that you know what's right. Because change can be hard, and it can be scary, and it can feel like it's too much. But it is an absolute blessing that we get to have these spiritual transformations, because along with spiritual transformation comes growth and presence and freedom. Gemar Chatima Tova, everybody. May this be a year of transformations for all of us.
Amen.